welcome Jennifer Knock and Alexander McCall Smith.
So this is book 14 in 15 years. You've been very busy, aside from all those other series that you've been writing at the same time. But since we're jumping into book 14, maybe you can kind of give us an idea of the series so far and where we are in this installment.
Well, the series, the number one ladies detective agency, is the story of Mara Matsui, a private detective in Botswana. And it starts with her setting up this little agency. And then through the volumes in the series, we see the various issues that she deals with. She doesn't deal with crime. There isn't really any crime in this. It's all about bad behavior or problematic behavior of various sorts. She helps people with the problems in their lives. And in this 14th volume, she is helping somebody who has set up a little beauty salon called the Minor Adjustment Beauty Salon. And there's a certain amount of commercial competition which turns nasty, so Mara Matsui gets involved in that. And it's also an important book from the point of view of Mama Kutsi, her assistant, who has a baby in this book. So there's quite a lot going on, but nothing unpleasant. I don't really go in for seriously unpleasant things. There's a lot of drinking of tea in my books.
And eating of cake.
And eating of cake.
I was very pro that also. So.
Oh yes, there's cake. Cake comes into all the books, and as does tea. People say to me the tea must be very significant. It must represent something very profound. In fact, that's not true. I just have these scenes when I can't think of anything else to do. And we have the.
I felt slipping into this book was very much like having a nice cup of tea. There's nothing to, you're a little invigorated and soothed and warm. It's a really lovely metaphor for the books themselves, I think. Well, you could sell them together, maybe some cake, you could have a little cafe.
Yes, that's a merchandising issue, which I think that's a very good idea.
You mentioned that she has a detective agency, and in fact these are books that are filed under mystery, but the mystery isn't really the heart of the books. What do you think that is? What do you think is the...
Yes, I think that raises a rather interesting question. I don't regard them as mysteries at all. Mind you, most people who write mysteries say that their books are not really mysteries. They say they're really writing philosophy or something of that sort. These books, in a sense, are about a country, about Botswana, and the people of Botswana, which is the reason why I wanted to write them in the first place. I'd lived in Botswana, and I wanted to say something about this quite remarkable country. I've never made any secret of the fact that with these books, I am trying to portray Botswana in a very positive light because I think it deserves it. It's a remarkable country. They've been consistently democratic since independence in 1966. The rule of law has been preserved, and they've built the country themselves in a way which is utterly admirable. And they're nice people.
Also much more delightful characters for you to spend all this time with. It's been 15 years, so
yes,
better company.
Well, yes. I mean, I do have one or two villains. I've got Violet Sefotho in the books, and she's a real shocker. She's a very, very nasty woman. She's a husband stealer, and worse. In this book, there's a discussion of business practices, and they talk about how people say that a business must expand if it's to survive, and she contemplates a little detective agency and wonders whether they've expanded. She feels she's expanded, and they've got an additional teapot.
I quite like her business practices. I would also like to have a sign that says "back sometime" to put on my door. I think many people would. And that's, I'm sure, one of the appeal also. The pace of the books is wonderful. You have it's leisurely. People take time to sit down and have their tea and go visit a friend.
Well, Jennifer, that's very interesting. And that's something that people who visit Botswana, and indeed this may be applied to other countries in the region, for example, they say that they go there and that they find that people have got time for them, which is very, very interesting. And this comes across as kindness and concern, which of course it is. They've got moral time for people. And we're so used in our frenzied societies to treating people superficially and not giving them our full moral attention when we meet them, that it strikes us as remarkable when we encounter it. And people want that. They actually want to have proper dealings with people in which people listen to them and are prepared to talk to them.
Let's go over to the writing side a little bit. There's
Yeah.
that old adage about no tears in the writer and no tears in the reader, but it seems that for the most part you're having a very pleasant time. And when I was doing some reading online, it seems that these books come fairly easily to you, that you sit down and they pour forth.
Well, yes, I suppose I'm very fortunate in that respect, and I'm conscious of my good fortune. I was a couple of days ago. I was speaking at a community college, speaking to a number of students in a community college after an event I'd done, and one of the students said to me, "Do you suffer?" and obviously, the student felt that writers had to be very agonizing people, people who are filled with unresolved issues and suffering. And I said, no, I don't actually. I'm actually really remarkably content. And this was a disappointment. If somebody approaches you and asks for advice in a writing career, and you think they're not really going to make it, or that they're the wrong sort of person that you'd want in the profession, you might say to them, well, you realize there's a lot of suffering ahead. Are you prepared to suffer? I write about 4 or 5 books a year, which is breaking all the known rules of publishing. And so it has to be carefully organized. And often I write 2 books at the same time. I'm working on one book while I start another book.
So do you have an idea what's coming up next, what the next case for the Ladies Detectives Agency will be?
Well, I've got a title. I usually come up with the title before I write the book. And then I try to make sure that the book has some connection with the title. So I've got a very good title for the next one, which is The Handsome Man's Deluxe Cafe, and that's going to be quite interesting. Mama Coetzee will start a little business in addition to continuing with her work as associate detective. And she has those shoes. She's very interested in her shoes.
She is.
And her shoes talk to her, which is a curious thing. And I never thought that I would end up writing books about talking shoes, but it seems to have happened.
Mama Matsu bought some shoes for the baby. Now,
Yes.
are the baby shoes going to talk to the baby in the
The
future?
baby's shoes will cry.
Until their vocabulary improves, I'm
Until
sure.
their vocabulary improves, and then they'll use little sentences.
What do you hope that people take away from reading your books?
I would hope that people would feel a little bit more optimistic about the world and about the possibilities of kindness in particular. Muramatsu is very kind, and I think that that's really important. We need to remind ourselves in a world in which the inducements to selfishness and to I suppose cruelty can be quite great. That here's somebody who represents kindness. Thank you so much.